award-winning national security and border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media, senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, and also One America News Network, the website of thekdreport.com. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good. Well, there's a lot to discuss today. There's a lot of rumblings going on.
Yeah.
And one of them would be war rumblings in Iran are resurfacing. Let me give the intro to this one because interesting. Late Sunday night, the White House made a surprise announcement that the USS Abraham Lincoln and the Bomber Task Force were being deployed in response to unspecified, quote, troubling and exploratory indications and warnings, unquote. Statement from the National Security Advisor, John Bolton, said the deployments were intended to send a clear and unmistakable message to the Iranian regime that any attack on the United States' interests or those of our allies will be met with unrelenting force. And the United States is not seeking war with the Iranian regime, but we are fully prepared to respond to any attack, whether by proxy, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, our regular Iranian forcemen, the statement continued. And Pompeo did not provide specifics on Iran's potential actions, but said Iran should understand how we will respond to actions that they may take, and that for any action by related third party or proxies here it is, quote, we will hold the Iranian leadership directly accountable for that. Kimberly, You've got your finger on the pulse of everything. What do you think we're seeing on this new escalation all of a sudden?
Well, I think you're seeing a little bit of the increase in the rhetoric from the administration, primarily from the Secretary of State Pompeo and the National Security Advisor John Bolton, both of which are they're war hawks, obviously. But we did see several hundred rockets go into Israel before the weekend, and not a lot of reporting on the Iron Dome defense system that they have in place there that the U.S. helps maintain. They only got a few of those rockets out of the sky this time. So the sheer numbers that went into Israel really startled the administration. It set the powers that be to actually kind of look that, this could be a new proxy war. We know that, we're trying to get out of Yemen, and they want to stay in Yemen, and it's basically Yemen's, Saudi Arabia versus Iran, and that's really what it is. It's a proxy war. So I think what you saw over the weekend with the escalation of these rockets going into Israel and the fact that the Iron Dome did not collect or knock as many out of the sky as they had hoped actually kind of, got the entire, national security team, on edge and decided to come out with a statement, move more troops. We're moving more B-52 bombers back to the region after we took them out of Syria. So escalating tensions for sure.
Yeah, and my reports show Palestinians, they fired 600 rockets. Israel says it hit 280 targets.
Yeah.
I think you had to go 20 more to get half of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if my Common Core math is correct. Got about a minute before we have to take our first break. What do you think this means for the U.S. military?
Well, I think that, when anything happens to Israel, and with all the intelligence that we're getting and the reports that's starting to come out is, they're saying that all the information about Iran, looking to kind of, poke us in the eye, so to speak, came from Mossad and, other allies that are friendly to the U.S. So I think with the escalation in the rockets, the U.S. just really, when it comes to Israel, they really go over and above and beyond, and they just wanted, the other, people in the region, other terrorist organizations know that we're not going to take this sitting down, and the president's not going to be pushed over easily.
Well, we're definitely not getting a silent treatment from this president, which I guess appeases part of the people,
yeah,
not most of the people. And Kimberly, we'll take our break. We'll come right back. Kimberly Dvorak, DVORAK, streaming live on Facebook, CRN, Chuck Wilder, with my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, award-winning national security, border security investigative reporter. We talk about all those trophies and awards she has. I mean, my goodness, just hard to believe. So here we got rumblings from 2 or 2.5 different places, but there is kind of good news because the long Afghanistan goodbye has happened. The Taliban tells the U.S. adios, and peace is coming after withdrawal. So that's good.
Well, we've talked about this on your show for several years, dating back to 2014 when the NIE report came out stating that within a few years that the country of Afghanistan would go back to Taliban rule. And in fact, now Taliban runs more than 50% of the country. It's America's longest war. We still have 14,000 boots on the ground there. And there's a lot of, not only have we contributed a lot of, troops to the region there, the troops in the Gold Star families that have lost loved ones there, it's a very real connection for them because it was a large scale war. And so it makes it a little bit harder for military to kind of let go of this one. If you look at the American public and in general on war, they don't want anybody overseas. But with regards to Afghanistan, we've had so much time and energy, and our troops have put in so much time and energy that they are a little more hesitant to walk away and wash their hands of a situation they know will most likely go right back to where it was before the United States began operations in 2001, late 2001.
Real quick, I noticed in the report it talks about, I think it was 175 Taliban prisoners.
Yeah.
And this is where our president is saying that I'll release the prisoners. It's not the other way around.
Yeah.
That normally gets all the headlines.
Yeah, well, I think that, I just would, especially, President Trump on top of it, he campaigned on getting out of Afghanistan. He talked a lot about the pointless wars going on or still going on in the Middle East. And he's got a national security team that is not necessarily listening to what he wants. He will come out and say, no, we're getting out of Syria. And he starts to watch this happen. And then people inside his inner circle say, maybe not so much. We'll just leave him there. He's not going to really know too much about it. So I think the president is kind of, getting, a little frustrated. If he wants real change, he probably needs to start with changing his national security team. He needs to, put people in place that are going to be in line with what he feels regarding war. And war, we know, is not good typically for U.S. presidents. George H.W. Bush thought that he was going to get a second term because he did Desert Storm. It didn't work out. LBJ thought he would get his second term, but Vietnam prevented that. So going to war and being a wartime president does not ensure a second term. And with the United States right now in the public interest in this so low, it really does, bring to mind that, this could be something that could be a risk for the president right now. He could lose re-election over this type of issue.
Tell me what this NIE report, because I know they were predicting failure in Afghanistan 2014. What is the NIE report?
Well, it's a collective. They work with all the different intelligence communities. There's 17 or so different intelligence contingents around that the U.S. that operates under U.S. control that we know of, and they look at short-term and long-term goals. They are looking primarily at policy issues, and if our policy issues are lining up with what's happening on the ground. And as we know in Afghanistan, it's always a push versus shove situation. The majority of the country is not educated. The majority of the country is quite happy to live under dual presidents. They just don't have Western world ideals yet. Maybe their time has not come yet. There's a lot of significant things that would need to take place in that country for them or for the United States to declare what we've done as a victory. Again, we've put a ton of treasure. We've dumped trillions of dollars over the last several years into these wars in the Middle East. And if you look at it today and you look to see where these people are, they still are torturing their citizens. Women still can't drive. A lot of them can't go to school. I mean, there has not been any kind of significant changes. So I think that when you look at it and you're not looking at it every single day and you're looking, as a taxpayer, why are we spending all that money there? And we're not seeing the process that they promised, that we were going to see all these great things happen. They were going to be democratic over there. That's never going to happen. And if it is to happen, they're going to have to fight for it. So I just, when you look at these reports, they predict. They're very good at predicting what's going to happen. And in the case of Afghanistan, they said this was going to happen, before 2017, 18, and it's happening. So, I believe that what we need to be doing here is, looking at these reports and actually, assembling some sort of national security team that's going to be able to look at all of these different conflicts around the globe and say which conflicts have a good return of investment for us. What's working out? What is in America's best interest in a lot of this? And if that's the case and that's what we're looking at, then we need to let go of some of these old wars and be done with it and start focusing on this country, rebuilding our country, and protecting our southern border.
And I think, Kimberly, about, when you get into talking about Second Amendment gun control, there's always two sides. And sometimes the other side thinks the other side is making a point. Maybe so, maybe not. And the reason I bring this up is because in your report you have in 2018, UNAMA, they reported 1,015 total casualties as a result of aerial operations in Afghanistan, including 536 deaths. During the same period, the Resolute support 183 total casualties, including 71 deaths as a result of aerial operations in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But you look at those figures, but then you figure, well, you have to fire back. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, I mean, when they, especially with the green on blue violence, and we've seen increased bombings in and around Kabul. We're seeing the Taliban become a lot more, provocative, if you will, in their attacks against, any of the U.S. Partners or our allies, for that matter. They will return to power. They're the force. There's always a power vacuum when we leave these situations, and the Taliban will most likely fill that vacuum. What is going to, at this point, it's going to have to be determined. The Afghanistan citizens, they're going to need to decide where they want to go. And it seems the way things are going over the last few months here, that the U.S. is coming to the conclusion that we're going to let go, that we've had talks with the Taliban over the last several months. A lot of people talked about the Taliban 5 that President Obama released from Guantanamo Bay. They're part of these talks that are going on. So you have to kind of question yourself. And again, this comes down to the national security team surrounding the president. If we've got terrorists that are actually out there negotiating to get rid of U.S. troops and allies in the country of Afghanistan, what are we doing, for crying out loud? What are we doing there? I mean, it's just the height of it's hubris. You can't even believe what these people on the ground must be feeling.
Yeah, and there's that old saying, you got to follow orders.
Yeah.
Speaking of the people on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you don't see a rising of the Afghanistan people per se saying, look, we don't want the Taliban anywhere near here. You're not seeing that uprising within Afghanistan. They really don't have much to say or do. It's really a tribal country, and I say this an awful lot. So if you've heard it before, I use it. Genghis Khan went all the way around Afghanistan because he said it wasn't worth one drop of blood. So, and he was a pretty powerful, war fighter himself, and he didn't think Afghanistan was worth it. So it's a bottomless pit at this point. You're seeing the numbers turn against the United States in everything, whether it's casualties increasing, whether it's the money that we're sending there going to corruption, which it is, and we're seeing no progress here on this. And at some point you have to cut bait and say, look, it's enough. And that's why Senator Rand Paul has suggested, let's say we won the war, we pay our guys a $2,500 bonus for whoever served in Afghanistan, and we come home, and within a year, we more than well paid for that bonus that we give our troops, and they have the benefit of knowing that we won.
And you could even call it a lull in the action.
Yeah.
They used to have those general words.
Yeah.
And if something pops up, we'll do like we're doing now that we talked about in the first story.
Yeah. We're very capable. That's exactly what we should be doing, like we did right after 9/11, where we sent a few hundred, CIA and special ops into Afghanistan, and we routed out the Taliban, and it was done in a couple weeks. We have that capability. That's what we should be doing here.
Well, and then, there are terrorists everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are people who could be living in the United States and all of a sudden say, oh, boy, I'd love to be a member of ISIS. I'd love to be a terrorist.
Yeah.
Sounds like so much fun. And I'll tell you, Sunday, Trump, he named Martin Morgan now as the new head of the Immigration Customs Enforcement. And he served on the Border Patrol, I guess, for the last 6 months of the Obama administration. And he was removed from that post when Trump took office.
Well, I think that's where our energy in this country, I think that's where our national security energy really needs to focus. I mean, leaving aside what's going on with Israel and that right now, I think that we really need to be focusing on that southern border.
Protecting that border, that should be our number one priority.
Yeah.
And then if somebody starts, shooting at us, we'll take that into consideration.
Yeah.
I saw on the news today, I want to throw this at you here, that somebody went to Nancy Pelosi's office. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And they came to get their dollar because she volunteered to give $1 for building the wall.
Yeah.
I don't know what the outcome was. But,
probably not much.
That whole thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna. When we talk about these issues of national security, I don't think a lot of people kind of parlay the national security issue with, the border security. They think of it as, we've got to do this in the Middle East, or we got to do this, in Africa, wherever these new wars seem to pick up. But, in actuality, with all of these wars and secret wars we're involved in and terrorist plots all over the world, there's one thing that, that we can do to protect ourselves, and that's protect our borders. And it seems, I have such a hard time understanding why people, especially here in Washington, D.C., I go to, symposiums and seminars all the time, and you'll talk about national security, and they're like, we need to do A, B, and C, but then you say we need to protect our borders, and they're like, oh, well, we don't need to do that. We're not in the Middle East. We don't need to be concerned about that. But it's explicitly for those reasons. You and I both talked to Border Patrol and CBP and ICE and that, and they're terribly concerned that there are tons of terrorists, a lot of terrorists crossing that southern border. How many of them are here? We really don't even know. So, there's, trying to get the dovetailing from some of the, the liberal elites to look at the issue purely from a national security standard. That border has got to be secure. If it's we would just want everybody here for cheap labor, they're all for that. But it's national security that we need to be worried about. And if we were concerned and worried about our own borders, then maybe we wouldn't need to worry so much about what the rest of the world is doing.
There's two things sayings that come to mind that tie in with this. One of them is sleight of hand, where they're doing one thing and you should be watching both hands instead of just one. And that's the way I feel about this caravan, And then it's the Trojan horse, and it's almost like the little children have been taken out of the horse. It's in plain sight. Oh, look, it's for the children.
Yeah.
They just talk about they took away all the guns in Venezuela 7 years ago.
Yeah. How's it working out for them?
And the reason they gave the people for taking away their guns was, it's for the children.
Yeah.
How many times do you hear that in the United States? We got a minute before the break.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'll agree with you. I mean, even in Mexico, you're not allowed to really lawfully own a firearm. How's that working out for them? They have one of the highest murder rates in the world. We're looking at it. We're looking at a situation where I like where you were talking about, look at this hand and this hand's doing something else. Well, we know the cartels are using drones along our southern border. They're seeing where these migrants are going. They're seeing where the Border Patrol are having to respond to the intrusions across our border. In the meantime, here comes all of the drugs and here comes all of the OTMs, other than Mexicans crossing the border into our country undetected. So, this is a critical national security issue. And sadly, it's going to probably result in some sort of terrorist attack in this country that most likely could have been prevented if we actually did the right thing. And that's put our U.S. Army on the border and then leave them there until that border is 100% secure. All the other countries around the world do that. We should as well.
Last week, rumblings about, our National Guard has been there long enough. We got to bring them home. What are they going to do when you bring them home? Oh, well, they got to attend the National Guard meeting once a month. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they train.
Boy, it's complicated. And the thing to remember as we go into this break, listener, is that we have lots and lots of port of entries. It's not just, down there on the northern border or the southern border. No, it's any airport, any port, air, water. Those are ports of entry. All right, we're going to be back, wrap things up. Kimberly Dvorak, and it's thekdreport.com. We'll be right back. A lot of those interns come in and say, here's how you should do it. All of a sudden you win another award.
There you go.
Thinking about the immigration problem in the United States, for some reason, it just seems perfectly clear to just about everybody. They should realize there's a problem. And I know that the kids have been indoctrinated in school, and there's a lot of propaganda out there, but it just seems like, you'd realize something's wrong. Yeah.
Well, but look at why Trump won the presidency. Build the wall. It was a very simple term. It was build the wall and stop illegal immigration and get our house in order. And it's something that was very simple. It's something that he has done on certain levels, but he has not got the wall built. And we have the matter of all these caravans coming up north. And, we've talked about it, $8,000 per person to get up here, family of 4. You're looking at $24,000, $32,000 for families to get up. Do any American families, really in the middle class have that kind of money to go on a vacation next week? They don't. So and they're not traveling with, they're not traveling heavy, but then also on the other side is once they get here, we're giving them, the United States, these people that come in under the political asylum, they're getting cash. I'm not talking a check, I'm not an ATM card, they're getting cash to live because they don't have any identities here. So they're getting actual cash to live. They're getting housing subsidies. And then they're turning around and taking some of that cash that the taxpayers are giving them, and they're sending it back in remittances to their countries. They're crossing with their flags of their countries they're coming from. It's a black eye to the American legal immigration system, because these people that wait years to come here lawfully, and now you're seeing the streams coming up across the border. It's a critical mass right now. And again, it just doesn't seem like anybody's going to do anything about it until there's some sort of attack against our country, and they'll go back and they'll say they came through and into the country across the border illegally or overstayed visas or whatnot. We have E-Verify. Every company, including the federal government, ought to be using E-Verify. Nobody legally in the country could get a job that way. But the powers that be in corporate world and the elites, they don't want that. They want the cheap labor to continue to flow. But right now, with what you see and what you don't see on TV is even more startling, because they're not putting out the really bad pictures. They're putting the sad stories that a 10-month-old drowned in the river trying to cross with their family. Tragic for sure. But if they didn't cross illegally, that child would be alive today.
detention.
Yeah.
That kid, you don't get the true story unless you really dig to it.
Yeah.
Died because the father wouldn't let him
Get treatment.
Medication.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Kimberly, we have run out of time. It goes real fast.
It does.
Kimberly Dvorak, and remember how you spell that last name, Dvorak, and that way you can find her everywhere. One America, CW6, the KD Report, Facebook, YouTube, podcast. Yeah, what's that? Oh, yeah, Periscope. All right. Now we're going to